Daytona, and away we go for the first time. Nicholas Borcel, Sean.
Looks like most get through unscathed. Look at that, there's Reed Gibson. A big move at the inside line of Dom's, possibly a little bit of contact.
Now as we've got 3 wide action going through turns 1 and 2.
And they're underway. Eric Hahn takes a nice jump. Wilson hasn't let him go very far.
Go out here for Circuit Spa Francorchamps. Alex Johnson's off to a brilliant start there.
Just how oddly shaped this one is. We saw in the background Eric Hahn go for a bit of a swing, and he's gone and he's over.
New stuff. Cody Graham's the one-on-one up into second place. Alex Johnson 6/10 the lead at the moment.
They're dicey up front. There's Andrew Kessel, Justin Sang.
They are ready to go. The lights are out, and away we go for the very first time here at Okayama International Circuit. Finley Fitzsimmons. Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to round number 4 of the Alpha Touring Challenge here for season number 9. We are here at Road Atlanta, gearing ourselves up for qualifying as drivers now get themselves onto the track and ready to go. As always, my name is Mason Heimball with Team Goon Squad, bringing you the action here today, 1080p 60 frames a second, as we get ready to kick things off here for the first time of round number 4. And folks, I gotta tell you, it is going to be a doozy here today. Drivers expected to make not just 1, but 2 full pit stops here for the hour-long race that we are going to see here tonight. And folks, if you weren't here for last week's race, I gotta tell you, it was quite a doozy, and it will be similar to what we saw here. What we will see here today, Brands Hatch last week posing a lot of unique challenges for drivers, and Road Atlanta going to be doing much of the same here. Not exactly a terribly technical course, but it will definitely put you through the ringer if you're not careful. It is a lot of points on this track that you can carry just a little bit too much momentum, miss your braking zone by 50, 70, 75, 100 feet, and all of a sudden you are in deep trouble. So drivers got to be very, very careful managing their speeds heading into the turns, and ensuring that they are consistent throughout today's race, and also being aware that they will be making those 2 pit stops throughout today's race. 15 laps is about the expected pit window that we are going to see here for drivers today. So we'll be keeping our eyes out for that to happen once it gets a little bit closer to that time. But right now, drivers just looking to set their first official lap times here today, as we're starting to see the first few drivers start to make their way across the line to begin their official flying laps here today. And we'll start to see those times come in on the board next time by. In the meantime, however, we can talk a little bit about last week and see just where drivers found themselves throughout last week's race here. So last week at Brands Hatch, we saw John Lazan come away with the win for the feature event. Francois Schink in that second place spot, followed by Micah Hendricks. And for the sprint race, we had James Carr coming away with the win, Micah Hendricks in that second place spot, and Jordan Bachmeyer in the third place position. Drivers heading into today's race going to be looking for as many points as they can, as the team standings for Team Curb Your Enthusiasm, they still dominate the team leaderboard with 368 points. Breakfast for Dinner, 263 points in second place, in Yellow Flag Motorsports in that third place spot with 236 points. Matt Zepka, James Carr, Micah Hendricks, Logan McKenzie, the first few drivers, and many more start to make their way across the line here as the first times are being set, and starting to see those tire temperatures be set here for drivers as they start to really dial things in here and get themselves prepared to see what their pace is going to, see what they can do here in qualifying. Obviously, the qualifying setup is going to be a little different than that of the race setup here that we'll see some drivers often use. So Matt Zepka, finding himself off track here for just a minute, finds himself without any other incidents other than just giving the mowing crew a little bit of assistance here or something to do after the race is all said and done here. Zach Perry, the 56 Hyundai, finding himself in a similar situation here. But nonetheless, from what we saw last week, we're going to be looking for Micah Hendricks to kind of have another repeat of what we saw last week at Brands Hatch, obviously coming away with 2 top 3 finishes. Hopefully be able to do something similar to that here today. James Carr, Jordan Bachmeyer, as well as John Lazan and Francois Schink coming away with top 3 finishes as well at Brands Hatch. Again, not exactly as technical as Brands Hatch, but Road Atlanta can oftentimes prove some challenges. Drivers, again, will be doing their best here to mitigate those challenges as best as they can. And we're seeing Zach Perry here just getting that temperature in those tires as best as he can. And I do know that the iRacing service in recent past here, recent history, I say history as if it's been a long time ago, but nonetheless, iRacing has made it, if I recall correctly, has made it a little bit more difficult to get the tires up to temperature. Used to be a little bit easier to do. You used to be able to basically just hold onto your brakes, just drag your, I think it was called brake dragging or something along those lines. Either way, that is no longer something that is as viable of an option, and so drivers have to resort to more traditional methods, I suppose you could say. Big shout out, big thank you to Lindsay joining us here in the chat here today. And a big shout out and thank you to everyone who's tuning in and watching today's broadcast. Joining us live for round number 4 of the Alpha Touring Challenge. It has been a phenomenal season so far here in Season 9 for the Alpha Touring Challenge. And as we saw last season, it was quite a lot of action, and they brought all of that and then some here for Season 9. So it's great to be back here, especially with the field that we have seen through the past few weeks here. It has been really, really great to see the support, not only from the driver's side, but also from the community, just showing their love and support of their favorite drivers, their favorite league, whatever the case might be. James Carr, meanwhile, still sits at the top of provisional pole with a 128.34 as the time to beat Logan McKenzie, just 0.2 of a second behind that with a 128.5. Jason Landry pushes his way up to the top as he comes across the line, but only by 0.03 of a second. Not much space between Jason Landry and James Carr, and it is a very, very slim margin between these two drivers. So for James Carr, he's going to be looking to, literally grasping at straws at this point for either driver. So, it's going to come down to who's got the better line coming down to the end of this. And Matt Zepka trying to push his way back up to the top. Logan McKenzie across the line, improves his last time around with a 128.36. Not quite able to get back up into that second place spot where he originally was. John Lazan moving up into the 4th place position. So qualifying looking very, very solid here for drivers. And as I was mentioning a little bit about points here, we can kind of delve into the Drivers' Championship here as well. Micah Hendricks sitting at the very tippy top of it all with 182 points at his to his name at the moment. Edward Gorman in 2nd place for the Alpha Championship. These 3 drivers are for the Alpha Championship. Just had to make that clear. Edward Gorman, in 2nd place with 164 points, and James Carr in 3rd with 148 points. So Micah Hendricks doing a fantastic job, looking to repeat himself here from last season and hopefully come away with another championship here with the Alpha Touring Challenge. Edward Gorman, another strong competitor from Season 8. I am fully hoping to see more of Edward Gorman out here and performing well because he has done so in both seasons past as well as here in the opening weeks of Season 9. So Edward Gorman, the 137 driver, already making a solid performance early on at the start of the season as a solo driver here in the Alpha Touring Challenge. But even despite that, is doing phenomenally well. James Carr in that third place position for the championship, sitting in the top three for qualifying, and looking to potentially start at the very front row alongside Micah Hendricks, who now takes the lead at 127.97. The first driver to break into the 127 region. And so now the rest of the field will be scrambling to find that time and see if they can improve their own personal best here. With now 5 minutes left to go, there is not a whole lot of time left in qualifying for these drivers to really find any sort of time here that is that small, unless you're kind of, well, strategizing it a little bit. You could, theoretically, warm up the tires at least once or twice, a lap or two. If you're not satisfied with that lap, you come in, potentially grab another set of tires, but none of these drivers have done so, so I don't think that's actually the case. So ignore what I'm saying. I'm just making up stuff in my head, I guess. Anyhow, James Carr moves up to the front ahead of Micah Hendricks by a mere 3/10 of a second here. Folks, I can't even stress how close that is. If you were to put the cars side by side, I mean, it would be almost identical. So James Carr getting on the curb there just a little bit. But James Carr, one of the drivers for Team Breakfast for Dinner here, going to be looking for a great start to today's race. His teammates John Lazan and David Bauer also looking to try and get as good of a start as they can to their race here. Again, if you'll remember, Breakfast for Dinner sits behind Curb Your Enthusiasm Autosport in the team championship by almost a full 100 points. So, if Team Breakfast for Dinner can kind of pull off a good race here at Road Atlanta, they could definitely, potentially, reel them in a little bit, chink away at that point lead just a little bit. James Carr, he's going to decide that is going to be enough here. And at 127.94, he's going to be satisfied with that time, and he's going to take it down to pit road and prepare himself for the main event. As the rest of the field continues to make their way around the track for the last roughly one or two more times before the checkered flag is waved, and we get ourselves ready for the action here today. Already you can see the Curb Your Enthusiasm Autosport drivers climbing their way up the timing tower. Micah Hendricks sitting alongside James Carr and his teammates. Matt Zepka in the 8th place position, followed by, I thought I saw Francois in here somewhere. Francois not here, but Mark Darnell is, and Mark Darnell sitting in that 18th place spot at the moment, so he's going to be out there looking to try and improve that pace here today as well, and hopefully be able to find a little bit of pace out there during the race and potentially find himself in some battles to be able to work his way up the field. But so far, out of the... Alrighty, folks, I think we're back. That was strange. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. Was talking a little bit about how close the field was in relation to qualifying pace here. A mere 2 to 3 seconds between the entirety of this field, and Jason Landry coming out of nowhere. The number 5 machine with a 127.885, nearly blowing the leaders out of the water as far as pace is concerned here, with only 10 seconds left to go. I mean, we're talking nearly, it's about a half a second, a little more than a half a second. I mean, wow. Great job. I shouldn't have said a half a second, but 0.5 of a second. So, yeah, I guess it is a half a second. What? Moving on. Qualifying has completed here. Jason Landry coming across the line with an impressive 127.885 to put himself up at the front row, and out of nowhere here as well. I mean, I wasn't even expecting it to happen. I don't even know if Jason was expecting it either. But Jason Landry, I believe, lone driver. I don't see him active in any team. So Landry out here making a big name for himself as well. Brian Sohn, Brian Inaki, and a few other drivers just making their way across the line and finishing up qualifying before we get ourselves gridded up and ready to go. So as we're just awaiting for that, for the official grid order to be posted to us, we can move on over to our official grid, but just got a couple more seconds until that happens here. Okay, there we go. Alrighty, so let's move on to our starting grid here now that the remainder of the drivers have made their way back into pit road and are lining themselves onto the grid as we speak. Jason Landry with an impressive lap, coming in with less than a minute left to go. Puts himself up at the front row alongside James Carr. Micah Hendricks and Logan McKenzie going to take up the second row, followed by Matt Zepka and John Lazan in the third row. Edward Gorman, Jacob Wally going to take up our fourth row here today. Eric Statzer, Mike De Almeida in the fifth row. Damon Mitchell, David Bauer in our sixth row. Moving on down the grid, Connor Acatella, Kurt Smith in our seventh row. Kevin Clark, Brian Sohn taking up the eighth row. Raymond Toot, Brian Inaki in our eighth row, followed by Mark Darnell, Jesse Olson in our 10th row. Excuse me, I said 8th row twice, but Brian Saab, Christian Ost taking up the 11th row, followed by Luke Philippone and Trevor Lambert in the 12th row. And I believe we have just 3 drivers left: Zach Perry, Josh Jabarick in our 13th row, and Randy Ayers rounding out the field here today. Drivers we can see lined up, ready to go to kick off the action here today at Road Atlanta for round number 4 of season number 9 of the Alpha Touring Challenge. Less than 30 seconds left to go before the lights kick off, and we see the green flag drop for the very first time. Jason Landry, James Carr going to be at the helm of the field with 15 seconds now remaining. The lights tick away, and away we go. Lap number 1 here at Road Atlanta. Jason Landry, James Carr at the front of the field. Micah Hendricks gets alongside the number 19 machine as they scramble down to turn number 1. Landry stays out in front. Micah Hendricks with the move to the inside into second place. Carr now stays on the rear end of the number 1 machine. Curb Your Enthusiasm off to a great start here. Matt Zepka trying to get himself up into the mix of things. John Lazan getting a little bit of side-by-side action. Almost gets off into the grass, able to keep things going here a little bit further back. Side-by-side action continuing to develop here. Mike De Almeida, David Bauer, they go right door to door. That might have been Damon Mitchell and Connor Roccatella, excuse me. As the midfield continues to scramble for positions here, looking to see what they can do. Everyone going single file here through the hairpin. A relatively smart decision. Not many other choices that you have here without losing a very significant amount of pace here. Checking back in a little bit further up the field. Eric Statzer, the 789 machine, getting tracked down by Damon Mitchell, the number 27 driver. Door to door between Kurt Smith, Raymond 2 as they head down to the chicane. 2 going to be to the inside. Kurt Smith actually to the inside. The second breakfast driver doing a phenomenal job moving up into the 14th place spot. Raymond 2, the solo driver, now going to try and get back into that offensive position. Stay back in the draft as a little bit further up the pack, things get a little dicey. Tail to tail, it is almost 4 to 5 cars nose to tail here, all scrambling for position outside the top 10 with David Bauer at the very front of it all. We can kind of take a look at some of that action here from the perspective of David Bauer as he starts to build a little bit of distance. Probably enjoying it as well. Definitely doesn't want to stay too close to that pack for too long. Kurt Smith now going to be back on the tail of Raymond 2 as Raymond able to get back into that 14th place position. Unfortunately, we didn't quite catch it, but Raymond 2 definitely looking to crawl his way up the field as best as he can. Now, remember, folks, lap 15, we are expected oh boy. I honestly forgot what I was saying. Oh, pit stops. Yeah, so drivers are going to be expected to come down into pit road about lap 15. So not exactly a whole lot of time that drivers will be spending around on this track here before we start to see them want to come down into pit road, grab a fresh set of tires as well as fuel. And the midfield continues to stay very dicey here as David Bauer right on the tail of Damon Mitchell. Connor Roccatella also joining in on some of the mix here, and David Bauer looks to the inside potentially, not quite. He definitely entertained the thought there for a second, but David knows better. Doing a fantastic job here, this entire field. I mean, each and every single one of them racing with respect, not taking highly risky maneuvers that don't benefit anybody but yourself, and frankly, most of the time don't even benefit yourself. Three wide into turn 1. Eric Statzer, David Bauer, and Damon Mitchell all of these drivers just getting into a fantastic battle side by side, door to door between Raymond 2, Mike De Almeida. Raymond 2 trying to get a little bit of room, and there goes Kurt Smith off into the grass, having to take a little bit of a detour. Definitely not going to be too thrilled about that contact. But luckily, nothing else came from it. Luckily, he was able to get back out onto the track in relatively short period of time, if I can get my words out correctly here today. David Bauer, Damon Mitchell, Eric Statzer all continue this just phenomenal action that we're seeing here in the midfield. Let's tune back in with our leaders, though, as Jason Landry, he has continued to lead this field a little over 5 minutes in, but we're starting to see the top 5 really start to close in on one another, and realistically, we could say the top 6 here. Edward Gorman kind of at the tail end of this pack here, but still right on the tail of Matt Zepka. Logan McKenzie not too far ahead of him, so he's right there in the mix as well and looking to just stay in that draft and frankly probably even just kind of coast this one out as far as just letting things happen that most likely could and will happen. You know, like that old saying goes, what can happen will happen. And Ray Aguilar, Ray's always been my, Ray, I'm going to give you a sticker that says you're my #1 fan, and that's going to be my gift to you from now. I'm only kidding, but I love having you here, Ray. You always manage to make me laugh somehow. But Micah Hendricks, James Carr, Logan McKenzie, they're all going to keep this fight going. And Jason Landry, I mean, honestly, I'm just very impressed with Jason right now and his pace at the moment. If we'll take a moment to recall our race from last week at Brands Hatch, James Carr came away with the win in the sprint challenge. So it's not exactly out of the picture here that James is going to be able to, or Jason, I don't know where I'm getting James from. Oh, because that's why. Never mind. All right. Jason Landry did not come away with a win last week. That was James Carr that came away with a win last week. Where did Jason Landry go, I wonder? Or was he not here? Okay, I don't think he was here for Brands Hatch because there's so many drivers that it's hard to remember who's all here and who's not. Anyway, with that being said, it looks like, if my memory serves, or well, if this is anything to go by, it looks like Jason Landry here, this is going to be his first race of the season. Now, I don't think this is going to be his first race here with the Alpha Touring Challenge. If I recall correctly, he has been around in at least Season 8, and I'm sure he's probably been around longer than that. Point being, this will technically be his first race of the season and coming out strong and looking just absolutely fantastic here. That number 5 machine holding on to that lead, and we're going to keep an eye on it, see if he's going to be able to keep that pace up, keep that momentum up here up until, realistically, up until pit stops. If he's able to keep it up until then and get back out there and rinse and repeat, I mean, he's got this one in the bag, but that is a long way down the road until we see that point happen. So next 50 minutes, 51 minutes, Jason's got nothing to do but just tuck his head down and just keep on trucking. He's just got to stay consistent here. Be aware of tire management, fuel management. He knows the rest. He knows it better than I do. So he's going to keep doing what he's doing and doing a phenomenal job of it. And as I say that too, something I don't ever talk about on these broadcasts and something I don't really like to talk about on the broadcast because it's kind of irrelevant. But I'm going to bring it up anyway because it is, in this case, it is kind of relevant. Most drivers in this series are usually in about the 3,000 to 4,000 iRating range. Jason Landry is in the 7,000 range. Just to put that into perspective, folks, that is like top tier level iRacing iRating. It's ridiculous. It's very hard to get that number, okay? That's my point. That is why he's doing so well. Case closed. Moving on. David Bauer, Connor Acatella, Raymond 2 continue the fight for 11th place here as we just really are seeing a lot of interesting battles develop. Ooh, speaking of, Christian Oss, Zach Perry through the chicane. Zach Perry looks back to the inside of Christian Oss. And I had those names backwards that time, but Christian Oss going to be right on the tail of Zach Perry, the green Hyundai, the green and black, and Christian Oss in that white and red. Just right on the tail, less than 0.2 of a second separating these two drivers. He is trying everything in his power to get around him here. Let's take a look at the dashboard. You can see it on the bottom right-hand side of your screens. Just how fast we're going and what gear that Christian is currently in. Pennsylvanian gonna be trying to reel him in down this long straightaway. See if he can shorten the braking zone here just a little bit. Does so. Almost gets into the rear end, but does a very good job keeping it right up as close as he can without making contact. Christian doing a fantastic job keeping this battle up here between these two. As that battle continues to happen, Connor Acatella, Raymond 2, they continue their fight down the front straightaway. Connor Acatella gets left out to dry a little bit. He's going to fall back the pack here. Raymond 2 still trying to reel in David Bauer. Raymond, one of the hard chargers of the race. There's currently 3 of them that we could consider the hard chargers. Raymond 2 and Joshua Jabarick, both going to be tied for 5 positions gained so far in this race. But the actual hard charger of this race so far is Zach Perry, up 7 spots from where he started here today. So Zach Perry doing a phenomenal job, moving his way up the pack as best as he can, as David Bauer almost finds himself in trouble here, gets back onto the track and into the grass a little bit again. Doesn't quite lose too much pace here. Definitely don't want to see that happen too much here, especially when you have Mike De Almeida, Connor Acatella, and Kurt Smith all right there ready to take your spot. And Raymond 2 putting up some great defense and a very good pace here. So we can take a look at the lap history here between Mike Bauer and Mike De Almeida. And we can see right here, David Bauer definitely has the pace. Well, he clearly has been outpacing the number 6 machine. But when you start to look at Raymond 2 and David Bauer, that's where things start to get a little bit more interesting here. Lap 5, we could see a 3,000ths of a lap time difference between Raymond 2 and David Bauer. Move on to lap 6, a mere 100th of a second. Same thing in lap 7, 400ths of a second. Lap 8, things start to get a little bit farther between them. Lap 9, it starts to spread out even further. Will we see that here once they come across the line here for lap 10? Remains to be seen. Not too much further before they make it here. Just got to make it through the chicane. And out of 11 and 12, side by side, David Bauer, Raymond 2, out of the final turn, onto the front straightaway. Bauer able to get out ahead of the 996 machine, and there you see it on the bottom of your screen, lap 10 by a mere 10th of a second. Raymond 2 able to get out ahead, or David Bauer able to get out ahead of Raymond 2. Absolutely fantastic job. And I was incorrect. I had the positions there all wonky-do because our timing and scoring software doesn't account for things like that. So, I just want to ride on board here for a moment with Raymond 2 and just get an idea of what Raymond is accomplishing here behind the wheel of this 996 machine. Getting right into that draft. Look to the outside here if he can, or to the inside here as we approach the chicane. Isn't going to have enough speed to be able to make it work. Great job through the chicane, stays right on the tail. Big sweeping right-hander onto the front straight, and this is where Raymond can reel him back in one more time. I mean, there are obviously many places where he can do that here, but if he wants to get aggressive here in the next couple turns, he can do so if he sets himself up correctly. And if we see David Bauer make a couple mistakes, which for Raymond 2 is going to be a welcoming sight, but for David Bauer, I think he's going to be doing everything he can to avoid it while still trying to stay on the ragged edge. Staying the fastest he can out here. Checking back in with our race leaders, you can see Jason Landry just slowly but surely pulling away from this field. And Micah Hendricks, James Carr, Edward McKenzie, or Logan McKenzie, Edward McKenzie, where did I get? Oh gosh. That's embarrassing. Logan McKenzie in that 4th place position, Edward Gorman in 5th place. And Zepka right on the tail of that 137 machine. Thanks, Ray. Ian, yeah, I came to that conclusion shortly after looking at, a couple varying key, key elements about Jason Landry and his, well, record here on iRacing that should have led me to assume that this was his first time here, at least for the season, not here at Alpha Touring Challenge, but for the season, this would be his first race here. It makes sense. Things start to come together a little bit more, such as some of these battles that have been developing for quite some time. We're getting to that point now where pit stops are going to start to be a little bit more of a question in these drivers' minds. When are they going to want to come in here? We're just one lap away before we see, well, as we come across the line, it's one lap left before we see these drivers have to come down into the pits. Will we see a couple drivers take things maybe a lap or two further, maybe even more? Absolutely. There will probably be a couple outliers that are going to just be absolute wizards with tire saving and fuel management that they're going to be able to stay out here forever if given the chance. But for the majority of the field, they're going to be coming in here pretty soon And that will mean some of these battles might shake off a little bit, but not much. Not much at all. And Mike De Almeida, Connor Acatella, both teammates here, nose to tail, along with Kurt Smith, who's joined them in this little bit of a battle that they've developed here for 13th. As Micah Hendricks looks to pull himself away from James Carr as much as he can. And I mean, at this point, I think these drivers are pretty well aware that they're most likely not going to track down Jason anytime soon here. It's just, unfortunately for them, that's just how it's going to be, given the clear experience that is behind the wheel of that number 5 machine. It's almost kind of like watching a Formula 1 race right now. It's no shade to the field here tonight. It's just Jason Landry definitely showed up and you know, cracked his knuckles before he sat down. It was, you know, cracked his neck probably. It's like, all right, here we go. And I love to see it, honestly. I love to see the difference between drivers who have spent a long time developing their craft and becoming a just very talented driver behind the wheel, and comparing it to drivers who don't do it as much but still take the sport seriously, who still respect the sport and still learn the sport as much as they can. Okay, the best way to kind of word it, it's awesome to see the difference between the casual and the quote-unquote professional drivers that we have here on the iRacing service. Now, obviously, when I say professional drivers, I mean a lot of the guys that are doing racing here on the iRacing service usually are doing a mixture of real-life racing as well. Sim racing is a good way to fill in practice time, seat time, all of the above. So I won't go into further details about that because that is a rabbit hole that we can dive down forever. However, pit stops are currently underway. We're seeing the field slowly trickle their way down into the pits. Jason Landry, Micah Hendricks, Matt Zepka, and a handful of other drivers already making their way down here and getting themselves ready to get back out. There goes Jason Landry, Micah Hendricks, who we're tuned in with at the moment, make that pit exit, and they go back out onto the track here today to get themselves ready for their next stint. And it won't be the last one. They do have to make one more full stop before they end things out here today. So we are going to be looking to see how this is going to affect drivers. Mostly in this series, we see one-stop races. No more, no less, typically. Unless it's a sprint feature kind of layout, then that's the only exception. However, when we do have these full hour-long races, most of the time, at least in Season 8, and in the few races that I think we've only had one so far for Season 9, but point being, it's something a little out of the ordinary. I don't think it's going to throw a huge wrench in the gear for a lot of drivers here, but again, it's something that they don't normally have to do, so it'll probably be a little weird for some drivers, if any. James Carr going to be the last driver out on the track. That's going to make his way down into pit road in just 2 laps ahead of the expected pit window here. So James Carr going to be the outlier here, the longest stint here for today's race for round number 4. And I suspect that is going to be a relatively quick entry here for the 19 machine. Did he just pass pit road? No way. Am I just confused on where he's at on the track? Okay, whew. All right, for some reason, he looked like he was way farther down the track than he actually was. So with that out of the way, folks, and with most of pit stops being completed here, with the exception of James Carr, who now makes his way down into pit road, we're starting to now see drivers who are getting those tires back up to temperature, starting to find themselves back into those small battles that we've been seeing periodically throughout this race here. And I think a lot of the drivers here are in the mindset to just click off laps. Stay consistent, stay focused, don't make any huge mistakes here, especially when you still have, well, you still have 45 minutes left to go, and there's a lot of things that can still happen. Trevor Lambert getting right up to the tail of Christian Ost into the chicane. Definitely wanted to make it happen there, but he's right on the tail on the exit. Gonna keep that momentum up through the sweeping right-hander. The final turn onto the front straightaway. Looks to get right up to the tail here. Is it going to be able to... No. Oh, but a big slide from Christian Ost is going to open up the door here for Trevor, as he looks to the inside and gets right back up to the tail of Christian Ost. The 157 trying to do everything he can to keep that 333 machine off him. But Trevor doing a phenomenal job. Chasing down Christian here, and here he goes again. Battle for 19th looking to be a very exciting one, as Jason Landry retakes the lead. Micah Hendricks, James Carr remain within a second behind that number 5 machine, and right now Micah Hendricks actually showing that he's got the pace to be able to track down Jason. Will that remain true here over the course of the next few laps here? We'll have to wait and see, but at the moment, Micah Hendricks seemingly finding some kind of pace here, as timing and scoring showing he is slowly but surely reeling in that number 5 machine as best as he can. James Carr as well staying right on the tail of that number 1 Curb Your Enthusiasm machine. James Carr looking to have a good points day here for himself and his team. Breakfast for dinner. Back here in 8th place, Damon Mitchell, Jacob Wally, they're going to be in their own bit of a battle. It's Damon Mitchell, the lone driver here in the series. Looks to fend off the second breakfast teammate of Jacob Wally, and Damon Mitchell, if I recall correctly, so Damon Mitchell is in the Alpha Championship, currently sitting in that 37th place spot at the moment with 9 points, and right now looking to get a good boost to that point standings as he's sitting inside the top 10. As we approach the halfway mark, and Damon is looking mighty fine to be able to come away with a top 10 finish. And as I mentioned, that will give him a good points boost heading into the next race, and I'm sure will definitely give him a good confidence booster as well heading into next week. So for Damon, I'm sure he is definitely feeling a solid rhythm here at Road Atlanta and is definitely going to be looking to keep that one up. James Carr looking to put the pressure down on Micah Hendricks, as he's been doing so for quite some time, and I think just waiting for an opportunity to arise to be able to get out around him. Raymond 2 back on the hunt here to get inside the top 10 now, as he's right behind the tail of Eric Statzer. Raymond 2 with Team Real Friends Racing, looking to get back into the top 10 through the chicane to the inside of Eric Statzer, makes the pass and makes it look easy peasy as he does so. Phenomenal move by Raymond 2. Meanwhile, just a little further up ahead, Micah Hendricks gonna be challenged by James Carr. As Carr continues to put the pressure down and try and get a mistake out of the number 1 driver of Micah Hendricks. As we've surpassed the halfway mark in today's race, I think drivers are slowly but surely dialing up the pressure here. Right on board here for a moment with James Carr just to take a look at the action from the passenger side of the 19 machine as we approach the chicane. Smooth like butter, the 19 machine stays on the tail of Micah Hendricks out of the final turn onto the front straight and across the checkered line. Logan McKenzie looking to join in on the action here. Logan, after finding himself separated a little bit from the pack, now rejoining it, at least to attempt to put himself back into the top 3 if he can do so. James Carr, the driver who did come away with the win for the sprint race last week, looking to come away with a top 3 finish here at Road Atlanta. Definitely not going to give that position up very easily here to Logan McKenzie. As for some reason, I'm just now seeing all the random sponsors that are on some of these cars, and they're making me chuckle. I think Logan McKenzie, he's got a Tide logo somewhere. Yep. I don't know why that makes me laugh, but it does. James Carr looks to the outside of Micah Hendricks. Will he be able to make it work? Door to door between the two. Micah Hendricks stays to the inside. He's going to have a little bit more of an advantage here. James Carr going to get that draft push from Logan McKenzie coming down this straight, and Micah Hendricks doing everything he can to limit James Carr. Prevent him from using as little track as he can. Micah Hendricks putting up incredible defense here to James Carr to put himself into that second place spot, or at least to hold on to that second place position. Logan McKenzie now going to stay on the tail of James Carr out of the final turn and across the checkered line. Micah Hendricks able to get a little bit of distance separated between himself and the third place driver. Hopefully be able to continue improving that pace here. His timing and scoring showing that James slowing down a little bit pace-wise to Micah Hendricks, and we can take a look at that here on the bottom of your screen, just how up and down it's been between these two drivers. One lap, the other goes faster, the next lap, the other way around. Jesse Olsen makes his way down into pit road as we are about 5 laps away before we see the last and final pit stops being made here today. Which, surprisingly enough, is going to be very, very close to the time where the checkered flag is going to be waved. So definitely a very, very close situation that these drivers are going to be in as far as pit road is going to be concerned, because 4 laps from now, we're going to be almost 15 minutes left to go here in this race. So obviously still plenty of time to get back out onto the track and continue racing. But 15 minutes is definitely not a whole lot of time to recover from anything. If you say you come into pit road too fast, you get a speeding penalty, and all of a sudden you're stuck in pit road for another 30, 40 seconds, whatever the speeding penalty is. James Carr, Micah Hendricks side by side. Meanwhile, the battle for second place continuing to develop. Hendricks going to stay out ahead of it all, though, as James Carr just looking for any opportunity he can here, and Logan McKenzie as well. Trying to keep himself in the action, but it looks like we've encountered lap traffic here. Trying to figure out who that is. I believe that's Jesse Olsen, the number 16 machine, who's found himself down a lap. So I think Logan McKenzie, we saw him flashing his lights a little bit ago. I wasn't too certain what it was at first, but I think it might have been because of that lap traffic being in the way and not exactly giving Logan an opportunity to get past him. So while the front of the field continues to duke it out, we've got some action developed back here towards the tail of the field with Trevor Lambert, Christian Austin, Zach Perry all in the mix here at about less than a half a second separating these drivers at the moment. And I think for these three drivers, having now someone, having some drivers around you to kind of race with or race against is definitely going to give them a good bit of motivation here with less than 20 minutes left to go, as a good chunk of this field has found themselves with over a second to the next driver ahead of them. So a lot of distance to be covered for a lot of drivers here at this moment, and that's not going to be an easy thing to do here, especially when you still have that one pit stop left to go. It's going to be a very tricky situation here for drivers that want to potentially get another position or two, whatever the case might be, or even just put themselves in another battle before the end of the race. Want to be able to keep that pace up, keep the momentum up, and not feel themselves kind of fall down the pace a little bit and start to feel themselves go a little bit slower than they would like to be. At least that's how I start to feel after a while of racing just kind of by myself. It doesn't usually always feel the greatest. But I know that a lot of these drivers, they make the best of it, and they do a phenomenal job of it. And I think now we're starting to see those pit stops start to cycle their way on through. As further up the head of the field, James Carr moved his way up into that second place spot as Micah Hendricks fell back into fourth. And we'll take a look at this pass here. James Carr to the inside. Gets Micah Hendricks a little sideways through turn one and loses 2 spots after just a minor bit of contact, getting that rear end upset of the number 1 machine. Micah Hendricks doing a phenomenal job of keeping it on the track and recovering from that very, very tricky situation. As slowly on through the field, you can see on the bottom of your screen, drivers make their way through pit road and get their last and final pit stops out of the way, with about 16 minutes left to go before the checkered flag here for round number 4 of the Alpha Touring Challenge here at Road Atlanta. Jason Landry, your current race leader, followed by James Carr, Logan McKenzie, Micah Hendricks, and Edward Gorman, rounding out your top 5. So there goes Jason Landry, Micah Hendricks. A couple other drivers make their way down and on through pit road. 15 minutes left to go here in today's race. David Bauer here. What's very impressive right now is, well, Jason Landry just came out of pit road, so he's still getting the temperature up in those tires, but David Bauer, even on a very old set of tires, or not even that old, he's still able to track down Jason Landry here. Edward Gorman now makes his way on through pit road. Raymond 2, Mike De Almeida, and Eric Statzer all in a bit of a battle here for the 12th place position. Now with less than 15 minutes left to go, it all comes down to this. And let's see with what time we have left, what battles will develop here. Mike De Almeida looks to the inside here through the chicane. Not quite going to make it work that time around. And Raymond, too, all over the rear end of Eric Statzer. Looks to the outside off turn 1. Goes a little too wide into the grass and falls back into that 14th place position. Raymond 2 having visions of grandeur. Unfortunately, giving it a little bit too much. Falls back behind Mike De Almeida to get back into the chase. And Mike De Almeida, I think, is not going to be in the mindset of giving this spot up after finding himself up here. Both Eric Statzer and Mike De Almeida, the Yellow Flag Motorsports drivers, definitely going to be well aware of the Real Friends Racing Raymond 2 just behind them. I don't think there will be much communication happening, but I'm sure it is kind of a mental note being made between both drivers of the Yellow Flag Motorsports machines that, hey, we got some competition behind us. Let's not make it too easy for them, shall we? As Raymond 2 gets right up to the tail end of Mike De Almeida, looks to the inside, going through the final turn in a flyer here by the 996 of Raymond 2. Incredible. A 2-for-1 job here by Raymond, and makes it look just so easy. Eric Statzer, meanwhile, he's not going to let that one go too easily as he tries to reel back in that 996 machine. Meanwhile, Mike De Almeida, well, we've got the whole Yellow Flag Motorsports crew here. 12th, 13th, and 14th at the moment. There it is, the 10-minute warning. David Bauer makes his final stop of the race, and a little bit later than the rest of the field here, but I think for David it'll work out just fine. James Carr, meanwhile, up at the very front of the field, just ahead of Jason Landry. Looks to potentially come away with a win if he can pull it off here. He's currently got lap traffic ahead of him. Appears to be Randy Ayers, the 111 machine. That is the only obstacle around James Carr at the moment, preventing him from getting truly clean air here. Looks to go for a big move to the inside here through the chicane. Jason Landry going to stick right on with him. Logan McKenzie also going to join in on the fun. Almost makes contact there with Randy. Manages to avoid it by mere probably inches. As James Carr comes out of the final turn onto the front straightaway, 0.2 of a second separating both Landry and McKenzie. Here in what will be a very, very tense battle for the lead. Here for round number 4 at Road Atlanta. Let's ride on board here for a moment with Jason Landry. Oh. Real close here as Trevor Lambert finds himself in a swarm of lead lap drivers trying to make their way around. And Trevor, I'm sure, he was definitely gripping that wheel pretty hard there for a moment. I would have to imagine a very tough, a very tense situation to be in, but James Carr has enjoyed all of this lap traffic that has developed here as he's managed to pull away from Jason Landry, Logan McKenzie to over a full second. Now there's still 7 minutes left in the race, still plenty of time for things to happen here, as speaking of, here in the midfield, it is only getting more exciting with Eric Statzer at the front of this 4-car battle for 11th. Connor Roccatella gets a little loose into 1, able to recover quickly. Raymond 2 stays on the tail here, trying to recover from that 2-position loss that he suffered a little bit ago. Mike De Almeida now going to be under pressure, Connor Roccatella now going to be under pressure here from the 996 machine, who all race long has been performing very well in regards of having a very good pace, has just unfortunately had a couple small issues here and there, just a couple small mistakes that have really kind of set back the 996 machine here tonight. But overall has done a fantastic job, even despite the issues that he's had here, has been excellent in keeping that, not letting it get to him, and keeping the pace up all race long. As we tune back up to the top 10, Damon Mitchell, John Lazan, Jacob Wally going to fight it out here for the 7th place position. Now less than 5 minutes left to go before we see the checkered flag waved here at Road Atlanta. And only a few laps left for drivers to hash out these battles that they have been working on for quite some time. Raymond 2 getting right up to the tail of the 55 machine down the front straightaway. Yellow flag motorsports driver going to look to keep the pace up here as he's done so for some time now. But Raymond 2, as I've mentioned, definitely hasn't shown that he's been afraid to send it if he has to. Staying right on the tail of the 55. I mean, mere inches separating these two. Raymond looks to the inside to get alongside the 55 machine. Not quite going to be able to make it work. Mike De Almeida, meanwhile, looks to the inside of Raymond 2 through the chicane. Not going to have the pace to make it stick this time around, but definitely was looking for that opportunity to pop up here. Looking out the rear view of Connor Acatella in the 55 machine as we get ready for a minute left in today's race. The final chance for drivers to develop any battles that they might have, and for James Carr to potentially come away with a win here at Road Atlanta. Last week coming away with the win for the sprint race. This week looking to come away with a win here for the whole thing. Matt Zepka, Edward Gorman, meanwhile, duking it out for the 5th place spot. Zepka gets back up to the tail of the 137 machine. Through the hairpin, looks to get onto the inside. Door to door. Down the long straightaway between these two. Edward Gorman, Micah Hendricks. Matt Zepka, Edward Gorman looking to find themselves in the top 5 here today. Gorman to the inside through the chicane. Gets a tap to the side from Zepka. Zepka going to hold on to that 5th place spot. 1 turn left to go. Here for the Curb Your Enthusiasm Autosport driver, Edward Gorman. A very, very close finish here. Just the last few battles remaining on track. And with only a few turns left, I think that is going to do it for them here today. As the remainder of the field come across the line and finish this one out here today, James Carr coming away with an absolutely incredible win here. Kind of unexpected, out of nowhere, after Jason Landry in his incredible start to the race, finding himself able to hold on to the lead for, I would say, at least 60 to 70% of this race here tonight. And James Carr finding himself in a very lucky position and able to come away with a big W for today. Let's take a look at our post-race results here today and get ourselves ready to go for some post-race interviews. Starting up first here in the booth is going to be Logan McKenzie, the 04 machine, coming away with a podium finish here today. Logan, it was a tough race here today, I think, for a lot of drivers. I mean, definitely, I would say, compared to last week where we saw what we saw at Brands Hatch and kind of taking that here tonight, I mean, it was more or less just, I think tonight was more difficult for drivers just because of the fact that you had 2 pit stops and it was a full hour, and keeping that consistency up for that long can be challenging in some ways. But Logan, yourself and your team able to do a fantastic job here tonight. I mean, Yellow Flag Motorsports coming away, I think, with a couple top 10 spots, and then yourself in the top 3. I mean, how are you feeling after today's race?
Yeah, it was, I did the 2-hour IMPC race yesterday, so this 1 hour, especially with the 2 pit stops, it felt like it went nice and quick. It was definitely stressful. I was having to do everything I could to fuel save and keep up with those guys. I was really surprised when I was able to save almost as much as James did, but yeah, pretty straightforward there. It got a little close at the end. Lap car gave us some damage, so I had to get feisty with Micah, but held on to the podium.
Well, and with a podium also comes with a few more points to tack on here for your Alpha Championship points as well. And I'm not very good at math here, Logan, but after tonight, I would have to imagine that you're going to be able to push your way up a little bit closer to that top 3 in fighting with Micah, Edward, and James Carr, whoever happens to be up there after points are all said and done after tonight. But Logan, I think today might have been a very, very good day for yourself and for your team, points-wise, as well as probably motivation-wise heading into next week as well. We head to, oh boy, it's the Nürburgring. Okay, maybe not as much, but either way, Logan, I think it was a great night here for yourself, and looking forward to next week. What's kind of your game plan for the Nürburgring, as it looks like we're doing the entire thing? Oh Lord.
Yeah, it's so the officials this week are also doing that same layout, so I'm just gonna slam those officials as hard as I can. I know the track, but do I know it well enough to be fast? I don't know about that. So, I mean, the order next week might be a little shuffle. Depends on if any Nürburgring sort of ringers show up.
You know, I'm trying to remember how many turns are on the Nürburgring. Isn't it like 150 something?
It's enough.
Fair enough.
There are enough corners on that track.
Well, either way, with not trying to make you regret your life choices for ahead of next week, Logan, anyone you want to give a shout out or thank you to before you head out tonight?
Shout out to the entire top 4 here. It's great racing. Roadland never disappoints. You always get these sort of lead groups and gets these really tense battles. So the 2 pit stops was fun, but shout out to James and Jason and Micah, especially James, because he really perfectly fuel saved his way to a victory tonight. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Logan, thank you for joining me up here in the booth. It's always a pleasure. I hope to get to talk to you again, and good luck to you next week. And hopefully we get to see that 04 machine back up there on the podium.
That's right. All the best to you.
You as well. Thank you. Alrighty, folks. That is Logan McKenzie out of the booth here tonight, coming away with a 3rd place finish. Up next, we have Jason Landry joining us up here, coming away with 2nd place. Jason, this was a tough one to kind of digest here. I mean, you were dominating the race for quite some time, and James Carr, I mean, he kind of pulled the rabbit out of the hat trick, and really made something happen for himself here today. But Jason, I mean, kind of going back to your lead, and having that really strong lead over the rest of the field all the way up until I think it was the 2nd round of pit stops, where things kind of started to shuffle around a little bit and things started to see yourself in that 2nd place spot. But Jason, before that all happened, how are you feeling in the car? How was things feeling for you out on the track, and were there any sort of issues that you were experiencing at all? It really looked like you were having a solid day out there, but was there anything that you weren't particularly happy with?
No, to be honest, I was doing pretty good. I felt pretty comfortable. I made a couple little mistakes. One at the beginning where Micah got all over me, and then I managed to pull away slightly again. And then at the end, maybe I went too slow into that last pit stop and put a little bit too much fuel, because I had 4 liters extra at the end of the race. But I went conservative just for the fun of it, and James had an awesome pace anyway, so I might have pipped him in qualifying, but he deserved that win.
Well, Jason, and I know we don't get to see you too often here in the Alpha Touring Challenge, but it's always a pleasure when we do get to see you and someone of your driving caliber out here on the field and kind of showing these guys how it's done, but also giving them a good run for their money and giving them a good chance to have some good fights as well. But do you have any future plans to come back here to the Alpha Touring Challenge? I know next week we head to the Nürburgring, which I'm sure probably just tickles your fancy, if at all.
You know what? I've never actually done a race at Nürburgring in iRacing. I've done it in Gran Turismo and stuff, but never in iRacing. But as far as me coming back, it's usually only long weekends. This weekend's Canadian Thanksgiving, so I was able to get it this one. But otherwise, that's pretty much when I can join, if I'm available that night.
Well, Jason, I didn't realize that it was a Canadian holiday this weekend, but hey, you know what? Sure, I'll take it. Well, Jason, as before I let you go and before you get to celebrating both a podium finish here as well as finishing out your holiday, anyone you want to give a shout out to or thank before you go?
Honestly, these guys here, Logan, for putting on this league, it's really fun. It's like one of the top, actually I think it is the top North American touring car and probably worldwide, to be honest. The numbers you guys get here now are awesome. Thanks to you for the broadcast and for my team Impulse, always giving me awesome liveries and the setups.
Well, Jason, it's a pleasure to always have you up here in the booth when we get the opportunity. Good luck to you in all of your endeavors, and hopefully we get to see you back out here in future time.
Yeah, thanks, man. Again, awesome win, James. Congrats.
Absolutely. You have a great one. Alrighty, folks, that is Jason Landry out of the booth, coming away with the 2nd place finish out on the podium. Last, certainly not going to be least, the man of the hour, James Carr, the number 19 machine. James, it was a doozy of a race here today, and at first, I'm not going to lie, I was kind of almost expecting Jason to kind of walk this one away, given his pace at the very beginning. And just how things were kind of looking for himself. But you kind of snuck your way up there to the front. It honestly came to me as a bit of a surprise at first, because I had to do a double take on the leaderboard, because I wasn't exactly expecting to see you up there at the front. Once pit cycles were all said and done, you just happened to find yourself leading the pack, and you kept the pace up the entire time, and even finding yourself gapping the field just a little bit there towards the end. I mean, James, what was kind of your game plan coming into tonight's race, and what do you think ultimately led to your victory here tonight?
I did a lot of calculating for this one in terms of how much fuel I realistically was going to need for the whole stint, and then kind of mathing out how fast I could go while fuel saving, and get as close to as pushing as possible while saving. And I ended up saving, we're talking a tenth and a half a liter each lap, but my fuel usage was way lower. I could tell, comparing telemetry, that I was going to be able to save a lot more and maintain the pace with the other guys. And then I really just saved probably 5 liters in the first stint, and I knew if I at least maintained 5 seconds within Jason in stint 2, all I had to do was push as hard as I could on the in lap and on the last stint, and that's the way she goes. Got her done.
Well, I mean, you not only did you bring it home tonight, but you brought it home last week for the sprint race at Brands Hatch, and I mean, coming away with back-to-back wins, that's always got to be a great feeling. But what we come to next week, the Nürburgring, and the whole shebang, you're talking about fuel saving and doing crunching numbers. Do you think you're going to be doing any of that for next week, or is it kind of just going to be a send it kind of race?
Absolutely send it. There's not a chance I'm going to be able to. Surviving that track is a win for me.
Yeah, you know what? I think I would have to agree with you. But James, like I said, you came away with 2 wins in the past 2 races, and not only for yourself but for your team, it gives you guys good points heading into next week. What kind of motivation, or what kind of does this give you guys any sort of outlook here into the next race or into the next couple races? What's kind of running through your head or through your team's mind at the moment?
Yeah, for the guys, really there's 2 titles on the line for us. It's still pretty early in the season, so I can't really, anything could happen, but driver and team championship is on the table, so that's keeping us motivated. We're practicing, and we're getting better every race.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I recall correctly, I think you were third. Yes, third before this race started. And I think after tonight, you might even be a little bit closer, if not right up there next to Micah Hendricks. So, yeah, great job from yourself here tonight. And hopefully we get to see that happen in the next few weeks coming. Obviously, next week kind of being a little bit more. It's kind of like the Daytona of like cup racing, the Nürburgring, but for road racing. That's kind of my best way to describe it. Anyway, point being here, James, great job on your race here tonight. Is there anyone at home or watching the broadcast that you want to give a shout out to or thank before you head out?
2 quick ones. First one, I told him I'd dedicate the win to him if I won, and that's Daniel Cedeno. You know who you are. You know where you are. This one's for you. Second one is not to get too spicy, but Micah, first an apology. I think we made contact in turn 1. Well, I know we did. Watching it back, looks like I could have done more. So I doubt that P1's going to stand after the penalty if he does choose to protest it. But you know what? Always a pleasure with Micah. Kid's fast as hell.
Yeah,
he's a man. He's not a kid.
He is certainly one heck of a driver, but so are you, James. You did a fantastic job, and I hope to see more of that 19 machine out here and doing fantastic work out here. James, thank you for joining me as always, and I look forward to seeing you in future time.
You as well. Thanks, Mason.
You as well. Have a good one. Alrighty, folks. James Carr out of the booth, coming away with the big old W for round number 4 of the Alpha Touring Challenge here for season number 9, right here at Virtual Road Atlanta. And as always, folks, my name is Mason Heimball with Team Goon Squad, bringing you the action here tonight. Thank you all for tuning in and watching. If you enjoyed what you saw, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to catch all the action that we have here on Team Goon Squad throughout the week. There is always racing happening sometime here on the Team Goon Squad channel. And folks, if you want to be a part of the action here with the Alpha Touring Challenge, you can head on over to the website listed on the bottom of your screen, alphatouringchallenge.wordpress.com. Get all the info that you need to be able to sign yourself up and get on the grid for North America's largest touring car league on iRacing. An absolutely fantastic bunch of drivers, a great league ran by a fantastic group of admins. It's a great place to be, and if you want to be a part of it, you know where to go. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you all same time, same place next week as we head to the legendary Nürburgring. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you all next week.
Oh, Pearson gets into the 95 of Folks. Here comes the caution.
Flag is dropped here at Daytona, and away go for the first time. Nicholas Morcel, Sean.
Looks like most get through unscathed. Look at that, there's Reed Gibson. A big move at the inside line of Dom's, possibly a little bit of contact.
Now, as we've got 3 wide action going through turns 1 and 2.
And they're underway. Eric Hahn takes a nice jump. Wilson hasn't let him go very far.
Let's go out here for Circuit to Spa Francorchamps. Alex Johnson's off to a brilliant start there.
See just how oddly shaped this one is. We saw in the background Eric Hahn go for a bit of a swing, and he's gone and he's over.
Smooth stuff. Cody Graham's the one-on-one up into second place. Alex Johnson 6/10 lead at the moment.
They're dicey up front. There's Andrew Kessel, just insane.
They are ready to go. The lights are out, and away we go for the very first time here at Okayama International Circuit. Finley Fitzsimmons.